President Trump has recently signed an executive order to start doing something to help the school choice debate with federal funding. But it has a lot of opponents. Public school teachers and big unions want to make sure they keep kids in schools where they're failing. They want to keep poor kids in poor schools where they belong. This is a serious problem for public education in America. We cannot continue to have two different school systems, one for those who have money who can send their kids to private schools, and one for everybody else. This is a serious issue, and President Trump's executive order is a step in the right direction. In thinking about school choice, we have to take a look at what's actually happening. You have the public school system, which is being given money by the state to pay for your child's education. So they already have the scholarship to pay for their education. The problem is it's only allowed to go to the public school in many states. A majority of people who go to private schools come from more affluent families, those who can afford it. But a majority of Americans want to send their kids to private schools. We have to think about what our framers had in mind when they talked about the education of the public. Thomas Jefferson, when he was governor of Virginia, was a big proponent of public education. He wanted to make sure that every citizen had the opportunity to get an education, because in a democratic system, the only way you can be free is to be educated, to understand the system where you live, and to be able to vote and make choices in those regards. Ever since our public school system came around in the turn of the 1900s, largely fueled by immigration, a need to Americanize those foreigners who were coming here, and a general movement to promote the democratization of America by making sure everybody was educated and knew what was going on. We have seen our people become less and less educated every year. The reason people want school choice is because our public school system is failing, and our teachers' unions and the Democratic Party work aggressively to keep these kids in failing schools, while at the same time sending their kids to elite private schools. School choice is a civil rights issue. The fact is that poor whites, along with every minority group who does not have access to these schools and to this education, should have the right to do this. And that's why we've been arguing around school choice. We've got charter schools, we've got private schools, and we've got the public school system in place. 3 different systems so that parents can choose for themselves what's best for their child. So something we have to keep in mind is that the elite, the Democrat elite, send their kids to private schools. And then they try to stop blacks and other minorities from having their kids in those same schools. Education in our society is the means of upliftment. It is the way that one class of people can rise up and overcome their oppression and become equal with the majority. This has been the idea for making sure we had historically black colleges, so that black students, college students, could be educated and fully participate in our society. If you are not educated, you cannot fully participate in our society because you do not understand it. But the left understands it just fine, which is why the teachers' union and the Democratic Party conspire viciously to keep poor people and minorities away from their precious private schools. And this is something we need to fight about right now. What President Trump has done is move America in the right direction. And this is going to be healthy for fostering a good democracy, making sure people are engaged in critical thinking and debate. So think about it this way. Let's take the average 30-year-old black male who has gone through urban schools, who had fewer opportunities to get into the Ivy League colleges, and by the time they're 30, they're here with their professionalism and expertise and their education and so forth. Now, a white student will be here. A white person will be here at the age of 30. Affirmative action was designed, and this is where it becomes problematic, because in spirit, it was kind of a decent idea, but it doesn't really work in practical application. Because if you need to make sure that you've got candidates for a job that you want to hire, and it requires this, the left's idea was to just reach down and grab these people who aren't up here, right? So they don't treat the symptom of the problem, which would have been making sure from the age of 6 years old, this black kid or this Hispanic kid or this poor white kid in Appalachia, where I grew up, had the same opportunities as the kids did that were up here. So we have to close that gap so that they can compete on an even keel. Affirmative action programs recognized the difference between these two tiers in our education system. The Democrats knew that there was going to be this gap because they don't allow kids to go to other places. So their solution was just to take these people who aren't ready for the more serious work and just put them up here in these jobs. And that becomes problematic. Education and putting people on an equal plane and giving them an equal opportunity to learn, that's what solves most of the problems that we have right now. That's what solves the civil rights issues that we're having, most of them. I think in the last video on DEI, I talked a little bit about corporate America and how they're kind of racist, but in general, in our society, this is what we're looking at. We have to make sure that we bring everybody up to here. And that is the beginning of the right solution to the problem. As conservatives, we recognize that the reason Obama was not able to promote people to be directors of the State Department, and he was heavily criticized for it. He was criticized for not putting black people and bringing them up, was because in the era of Reagan and Bush and Clinton, not enough black people or other minorities were given the opportunities to be in these jobs. They weren't competitive. So they didn't bring him in early on so that by the time Obama became president, he would have the ability to promote the minorities and fill those jobs with people who were ready to go. So our problem goes back a few generations, and we have to think about how we catch that up. School choice is the conservative answer to that. And that's why we need to be advocating for it. It is one of the most important civil rights issues, along with privacy, that we're going to be facing over the next few years. The only way these people catch up is if we reach back and make sure they have equal opportunity to education. If they learn critical thinking, if they're studying a language, any language, music, and so forth, they will be fully educated and they will be ready for what comes next, be it trade school or an Ivy League school. And that's what the difference is between the right's answer to our education problems and the left. The left want to keep our kids in failing schools. They conspire with teachers' unions who are only interested in protecting their jobs and don't care about what they do to destroy education in this country. And that's why we've got to work together on this important issue, and why when you're out on the campaign trail or working with a candidate, or when you're knocking on doors or doing something to propel this forward, you have to be an advocate for school choice. We also have to stand against the racism that is very clearly embedded in left-wing ideology that says these black kids need to stay in black schools, black failing schools, where they belong. And that's horrendous. It's a horrendous idea for a party, for a group of political people who call Trump rounding up illegal criminals who have committed horrific crimes a purge, a racial purge, because they hate me, they hate you, and they don't want poor whites, especially in Appalachia and so forth, and they don't want minorities to be able to rise up and have a voice in the country where we live. And we cannot have a functioning democracy like that. On my Substack, there will be more information about this with facts and statistics, so you can read the article about it there, along with talking points to use if you're going door to door, working on the campaign, or just having an argument with a coworker. So thanks for tuning in, and good luck on the campaign.